because the driver allegedly accelerated towards him. The Department of Homeland Security, meanwhile, has identified the two people shot as suspected associates of the Venezuelan-based gang Tren de Aragua. Portland police say they've been unable to verify those assertions, and DHS has not provided any evidence to support their claims. Now, this incident comes just one day after an ICE agent shot and killed Renee Nicole Good in Minneapolis. Joining us now is NBC News correspondent Camila Bernal. Camila, what more are we learning about how this transpired in Portland and the conditions of this man and woman who were shot?
So we don't know their conditions right now. We do know they were taken to the hospital. And the most important thing out of this story is the fact that we do not have cell phone video the way we did in Minneapolis. We don't have witnesses the way you had in Minneapolis. In this case, you do have to rely on the information coming from the Department of Homeland Security. And not everyone is happy about this, including the mayor in Portland. Here's what he said.
We know what the federal government says happened here. There was a time when we could take them at their word. That time is long past.
And what the Department of Homeland Security is saying is that this was a targeted stop, that they stopped this red truck, and that the man driving the truck tried to get away, hitting that officer, and that's why the officer fired multiple rounds, hitting both the driver and the passenger. They drove away, and about 3 miles away, they called police and asked for medical help. So that's how the Portland Police Department got involved here. And like you mentioned, the Department of Homeland Security is saying that this was targeted, that this was people who were involved with Tren de Aragua, that this was a woman who was involved in a prostitution ring with Tren de Aragua. So they're pointing to that as the point of their operation. But the question is, did this driver actually hit one of the agents? We don't know because we don't have video. But DHS says, yes, that was the case, and that's why the agent fired.
And pointing to that criminal background without releasing any evidence suggesting that, at least right now.
Yes, we don't know.
So the big question, you have an act that takes place without any surveillance video, with few to no eyewitnesses. So where do you think the investigation does go from here?
It's going to be very complicated because it would be an FBI investigation. And the question is there going to be any action against the person that shot, the ICE agent or the Border Patrol agent, excuse me? And it's unclear because the administration right now is backing a lot of these agents, saying this is their job and they have to protect themselves. And so if we don't have video to prove anything against it, we don't know. Even though local officials like the Attorney General in Oregon is saying, you know, we're going to investigate, we want transparency, but it is going to be complicated if you don't have body cam video, if you don't have any witness video, and you don't have any witnesses.
All right, much more to come on that front. Camila, thanks so much. Right now, we're following some growing protest inside Iran as the country's supreme leader hints at a possible crackdown. Now, in the capital city of Tehran, these videos are showing buildings, buses, even mosques set on fire during these ongoing demonstrations. The regime cutting off internet service as well across vast areas in an attempt to quell the unrest there. Iran's supreme leader saying the protesters are, quote, ruining their own streets and accused them of acting on behalf of President Trump. NBC News Chief International Correspondent Keir Simmons joins us now. Keir, good to have you. These demonstrations started about 2 weeks ago over Iran's weakening economy. But can you walk us through this recent escalation and what more do we know about the situation on the ground amid this internet blackout?
Yeah, I mean, the economy has been weakening. You can see the pictures there, the fury, and in a sense you could argue not surprising, because when we say weakening, we're talking about north of 70% increases in average food prices, north of 50% drop in the currency, and that has really infuriated particularly traders, the middle class, the kinds of people, if you like, the backbone of Iranian society in places like Tehran. So we're seeing these demonstrations across the majority of the 31 regions in Iran, including Tehran, for example. I mean, they are the biggest demonstrations since those 2022 protests over the death of Mahsa Amini, who was the young woman who died in custody after she was arrested because of what she was wearing. But this is also different because they are economic protests. And now the Iranian regime cutting off the internet, so it's getting harder and harder to get these kinds of images, to know exactly what is going on. And that's the idea. I mean, I think the strategy, because we've seen this before by the Iranian regime, will be to let the protests kind of burn out, if you like, lose energy, and then clamp down. But the Iranian regime will be stopping the internet in order to prevent protesters from communicating with each other, in order to prevent the outside world from seeing what's happening, and in order to prevent leaders of the opposition outside Iran from communicating with those inside Iran.
Understood. President Trump, not exactly shy on where he stands here, even threatening to intervene if Iran shoots protesters in these demonstrations. One Iranian foreign minister calling the president's threat reckless and dangerous. From a diplomatic standpoint, where do things stand currently?
Well, Ayatollah Khamenei, the supreme leader of Iran, has described President Trump as having blood on his hands. And what the Iranian regime is trying to do is to suggest that these are protests driven from the outside. So they're sort of trying to use the Trump administration's support for the protesters as evidence that the protests aren't legitimate. I mean, that's clearly not the case. Anyone can see that from the pictures. I think one of the questions is whether the Trump administration at some point decides that it wants to follow through on those threats to attack the Iranian regime because the one human rights group suggesting that 48 people have died in these protests that are now 13 days old, Morgan.
Yeah, Keir, we appreciate the context from a place where information is hard to come by. Thanks so much.